Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting for January 26, 2026. Please rise if you are able and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll of the members?
Rachel Holteen.
Present.
Dan Larson.
Present.
Kathleen Martell. Scott Ohm.
Here.
Mike Okada.
Here.
Patrick Quinn.
Here.
Jenny Snell.
Present.
Susan Wood.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Counselors, in your packet, we had study session notes from January 5th, 2026, City Council meeting minutes from January 12th, 2026, and special study session notes from January 12th, 2026. Do we have any corrections? Seeing none, we will give those back to the clerk with our thanks. We'll go to approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, we will move forward with our agenda. We have one proclamation tonight, so. If I could have Guy Namias join me up here. We have a proclamation tonight for Holocaust Remembrance Day, January 27th, 2026. Whereas the Holocaust was the state-sponsored systematic persecution and annihilation of European Jewry by Nazi Germany and its collaborators between 1933 and 1945. And whereas Jews were the primary victims of the Holocaust, but Roma, people with disabilities, Poles, gay men, Jehovah's Witnesses, Soviet prisoners of war, and political dissidents also suffered grievous oppression and death under Nazi tyranny. And whereas the history of the Holocaust offers an opportunity to reflect on the moral responsibilities of individuals, societies, and governments. And whereas we, the people of the city of Wheat Ridge, should always remember the terrible events of the Holocaust and remain vigilant against hatred, persecution, and the deadly consequences of anti-Semitism and hatred, dehumanization, and apathy left unchallenged. And whereas we, the people of the city of Wheat Ridge, should actively rededicate ourselves to the principles of individual freedom in a just society. And whereas the Day of Remembrance has been set aside for the people of the city of Wheat Ridge to remember the victims of the Holocaust. And now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Corey Stites, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge and the City Council, do hereby proclaim January 27th, 2026 to be Holocaust Remembrance Day. In the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado, encourage all residents to recognize that when any fellow human is stripped of humanity, when any person is turned into an object of repression, is defiled or victimized by terrorism, prejudice, or racism, then all human beings are victims too. In witness thereof, on this 26th day of January 2026. We will now go to our public's right to speak. Citizens will have 3 minutes to address the council on any topic not on the agenda tonight. On the clerk's desk over here, you'll see some lights. The green light is good to go. At the yellow light, you have about 30 seconds to wrap it up, and at the red light, please wrap up your comments. I will call out our first person, and then I'll call out an on-deck person, so please be ready. And I apologize if I mess up your names. Rona Burrows up first, and then Christopher Jonke on deck. When you come up, please let us know whether you live and work in Wheat Ridge and spell your last name for the record, please.
Rana Burrows, like Donna, but with an R.
Yes, I live in Wheat Ridge. I'm a 1974 graduate of Wheat Ridge High School. After 9/11, I was heartbroken. I thought and prayed that those perpetrators felt the hot breath of justice coming for them. Do you hear footsteps, boys? They finally did. Does DHS feel the hot breath of justice inhaling, ready to breathe on them? Do they hear the footsteps righteously and relentlessly walking towards them? If Minnesota, other states in the country, if they are correct, those perpetrators will begin to hear footsteps and feel the hot breath of justice on their necks. Justice is coming for the cabinet members and officials of the government who enjoy power for power's sake and do not care about moral compass, honesty, and most importantly, integrity. Justice, justice, justice is coming for you from the top man down. You cannot do whatever you want. You will face the worst consequences, top man. Not jail, not just contempt, but disdain, dismissal, and dishonor. You, top man, will be forgotten as soon as possible because you are an embarrassment to the previously greatest country on earth. You did not make America great again. You have bowed her, defiled her, and knocked her promise down from the lowest people who come here to the greatest allies. We have taken your measure, and you are lacking. However, as Americans, we will get up, dust ourselves off, dismantle and destroy your poor policies, self-centered and self-serving interests. We will elect and appoint officials with integrity and honor. Those who have correct expertise and desire for service, those who understand greater purpose and self-sacrifice. We, as a people, will restore the American dream, not with small thoughts, not with denial of abundance, but with our desire to live free, to not bow to tyranny, but to offer opportunity to all who desire a better life, a higher quality of life which doesn't take wealth, but stewardship, and a higher standard of living, which means job opportunities. You, top man, and your cabinet have largely failed and continue to fail. If you are remembered at all, it will be as a joke with ridicule. You are not righteous, just ridiculous. You will have been discarded and forgotten. Justice is inhaling, ready to blow you and your deserving cabinet members away. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Christopher Jonke up and Deborah Harper on deck.
Hello. Christopher Jonke, resident of Wheat Ridge. Hello, my name is Christopher Jonke. I appreciate your time this evening. I'm here to discuss some troubling matters that I believe the city of Wheat Ridge should be aware of and concerned with as it directly affects my neighbors and your direct constituents. To start, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the patriots standing up against an ongoing tyrannical assault in Minnesota as we speak. It's a constitutional crisis, and we must acknowledge this as it will have a ripple effect across the nation if it is permitted to continue. These are brave and passionate human beings that are truly embodying what it means to be American by standing up for their community. I ask you, what are you doing to prepare and to protect the most vulnerable in our community when this assault inevitably comes here? On Saturday, January 3rd, a federal government official trespassed on my property under the guise of researching for the United States Census Department. Upon digging further into this is not normal. The United States Census happens every 10 years, last being in 2020, the next being in 2030. Patricia is a registered agent of the U.S. Border Patrol Agency. There's a complete government overreach that is happening in our community. I implore you to reach out to the Immigration Customs Enforcement Department as well as the United States Border Patrol Office to gain some understanding about why they're trespassing in our communities, on our properties, with no invitation of entry. I'm sure that we're not the only household in Wheat Ridge that has had an encounter like this. This agent was reporting out of the Lakewood office. This is a terrifying reality. It is fitting that today's meetings proclamation highlights Holocaust Remembrance Day. This brings up a rough history, as my wife comes from two families that were broken by the Holocaust in the 1940s in Europe. Her family has shared countless stories of their relatives' experience, as well as their own, so that we do not forget the atrocities that are seemingly overlooked as that generation begins to sunset. Her family lost many relatives to the carnage that occurred in Europe, and we're seeing the beginning stages of a similar devolution of our societal contract between government and citizenship here in America. The parallels are too similar to ignore. Is this behavior condoned by my representatives? Who is funding the process? And what are my leaders doing to ensure that my and others' constitutional rights are not violated? This is deeply disturbing. I'm afraid what this will lead to next. I want to know what U.S. public servants are doing to prepare for the incoming and unprecedented attack from the United States government. Is our local law enforcement trained in de-escalation of oppressive federal overreach? Are they prepared to stand with our citizens that they are sworn to serve and protect to prevent what we are seeing in Minneapolis from happening here? How exactly are you preparing for this? And do you serve as allies of your voters or allies of the federal government? Please make no mistake, this is devolving quickly. Actions and preparations that are taken on behalf of the city of Wheat Ridge now will prevent fear and instability in our community. Our actions now will define the future. I leave you now with a quote from Ernest Hemingway's Farewell to Arms. The world breaks everyone, and afterwards, many are strong at the broken places. But those that it will not break, it kills. It kills very good and very gentle and the very brave impartially. If you're none of these, you can be sure it will kill you too, but there will be no special hurt. Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah Harper.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Harper, spelled Harper. I have two issues that I'd like to address. I don't know if I'll be able to get to both of them. So I'll express some interests, primarily of my own personally, about the first one. My father's name was John Harper. He was a Ford dealer in this community for many, many years. He passed away quite a while ago now, but ever since the property was finally sold, which was coming up on an anniversary of, January 30th, 2017, 9 years later now, there had been many, many issues involved, not necessarily with him and his piece of the property, but I'm sure some of the council are aware of some of the issues that occurred before the development finally took place. So there's lot number 5 that is still remaining on the property toward the back of the Wheat Ridge corner. And for these many years since my father passed away, it's been my desire to hopefully have an opportunity to have him maybe remembered as far as maybe some kind of a memorial. That property back there is supposed to have, quote, future development. I received a call back today from Jana Easley, the planning manager, who was extremely helpful to me, and we spoke about that briefly, and she's going to get back to me on that. She had looked up the information about the future development of a park, which I remember reading in one of the Wheat Ridge papers. I tried to find it today in my home, and I wasn't able to find it as detailed oriented as I think I am, and detailed with keeping certain things. I just couldn't find it. But I hope there will be an opportunity for that to be developed. I spoke with the gentleman last year or the year before. Same thing. I'm sorry, I can't recall who it was. Typically, I'm a big note taker. And I may not have written down his name. I thought I would still have it in my cell phone. But the gentleman that I spoke with from Wheat Ridge had said, yeah, we're looking at that, this and that. I really didn't get a specific response regarding what might take place on that property, but I hope it will occur. And the second thing that I'll bring up very quickly, which Janice spent a significant amount of time with me today, had to do with the 3 letters that I received today regarding the finality of the development of Lutheran Medical Center property. And I asked her, why am I getting all these letters when I typically used to only receive one? The last 2 things that I did receive from the Wheat Ridge, city of Wheat Ridge, relative to the Lutheran development, I was receiving 2 pieces of mail, and today I received 3, actually 4, but one went to my address instead of across the street where I live, where there's another condominium complex. So I hope there can be some resolution to that, because she explained in depth, which was complicated, obviously, in the time she had allowed to tell me what the issues are with the Melissa data, et cetera, that's going on with that. So I hope that that can be resolved. That's not my main priority, but
Good, thank
certainly
you.
there's expense that really shouldn't be taking place on that. And so that's the second thing. And I just want to say, this is the first time I've ever spoken at the city of Wheat Ridge. I've attended meetings, but I am grateful for the opportunity to speak with all of you this evening. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you. All right, we have nobody signed up online and nobody else signed up in chambers, so we will move on to our first agenda item. Counselor Wood, will you please introduce this item?
Yes, consent agenda items. Number 1A, Resolution 02-2026 is a resolution adopting a First Amendment to Tax Increment Revenue Agreement between the City of Wheat Ridge and the Wheat Ridge Urban Renewal Authority, doing business as Renewal Wheat Ridge pertaining to the Lutheran Legacy Campus Urban Renewal Plan. Item 1B, motion to approve monthly payments to Pinnacle Assurance for 2026 workers' compensation insurance in an amount not to exceed $343,510. Item 1C, Resolution 03-2026, is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Jefferson County Parks and Open Space to accept a 2026 Trails Partnership Program grant in the amount of $180,099.50 for asphalt mill and overlay rehabilitation at Anderson and Prospect Park parking lots. And then item 1D, Resolution 04-2026, is a resolution approving the Third Amendment to Intergovernmental Agreement to establish the Jefferson County Regional Crime Laboratory.
Thank you. This is our consent agenda. Counselor Wood, can I please have a motion on our consent agenda?
Yes, move to approve consent agenda items number 1A through 1D.
We have a second by Counselor Ohm. Will the clerk please poll the council?
Seven ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Excellent. We will move on to agenda item number 2. Counselor Quinn, will you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce Council Bill number 01-2026, an ordinance amending the Code of Laws to align with certain provisions of state law. This ordinance amends the penalty authority of the municipal court for municipal code offenses, which are identical to state law offenses, including importantly, theft and shoplifting. This change is required as a result of a December 22nd, 2025 decision of the Colorado Supreme Court.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on second reading. It's not quasi-judicial. This is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation?
Yeah, City Attorney Dahl has a little more to add, I believe.
Thank you very much. Briefly, the description of the issue identifies a Colorado Supreme Court decision issued on December 22nd that held that even if a municipal offense under the local code has that criminalizes the exact same conduct as a parallel state offense, municipalities are restricted or limited, rather, to the sentencing authority that the district court or county court judge would have when viewing that same offense under a state statute. This came as a surprise, I know, to most municipalities who've had their own penalty schedules for things like theft and shoplifting for decades. And the fact that those penalty schedules are different than the state statutory penalty schedules has never been an issue, but two defendants in Aurora Municipal Court raised that issue for some, I think, minor shoplifting matters. And it ended up in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court held that no, local governments like the city are limited to the state maximums. Because that's the decision of the Colorado Supreme Court, we're sort of done with arguing about preemption. They're the final decision makers on whether a state statute preempts local authority. And accordingly, in order to preserve the effectiveness of convictions in the Wheat Ridge Municipal Court, it's important that our penalty schedule mirror the state schedule so that we would not have a conviction that would be challenged on that basis. As I think I mentioned to the council at perhaps study session, it's rare for the municipal court judge really to impose penalty anywhere close to either the municipal maximums or the state maximums. But it isn't the penalty as imposed, it's instead the ability to impose a higher penalty or a different penalty than the state statute that gave rise to the preemptive effect of the Supreme Court's decision. This will not have a major day-to-day practical effect on the operation of the municipal court, and I spoke with Judge Lucero, and he agrees that it will not. So I'm assuring you that our court will continue to operate as before, but I want to make sure there's no defect to be alleged in convictions from the municipal court based upon the Supreme Court's decision. Thanks.
Thank you. Before we go to questions from council, we would go to questions from the public. I have nobody signed up online and nobody signed up in the chambers, so we will go to questions from council. Speak now. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and I will ask for a motion. Councilor Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill 01, 2026, an ordinance amending the Code of Laws to align with certain provisions of state law on second reading, and that it takes effect 15 days after final publication as required by the Home Rule Charter.
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Okada. Do we have discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We will go to agenda item number 3. Councilor Larson, will you please introduce this item?
And thank you, Mayor. This is Council Bill number 02-2026, an ordinance on first reading, an ordinance amending Chapter 13 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning vehicle muffler requirements. Noise produced by motor vehicles with non-compliant, altered, or missing mufflers is injurious to the public health and welfare. This ordinance adopts muffler-specific code requirements to better address vehicular exhaust noise and its control.
Thank you, Councilor Larson. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the date and time for a public hearing. May I please have a motion?
I approve. Pardon me. I move to approve Council Bill number 02-2026, an ordinance amending Chapter 13 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning vehicle muffler requirements, ordered, published, and a public hearing set for February 9th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. in City Council chambers, and that it take effect immediately upon adoption at second reading and signature by the mayor.
Second.
I have a second by Councilor Okada. Will the clerk please poll the council?
Before we do, one quick note here on page 73, and that's the actual code. There is a typo on the date signed by the mayor on the state. It should be 2026.
2026.
We'll catch that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Will the clerk please poll the council?
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Excellent. We will go to agenda item number 4. Councilor Ohm, will you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Motion awarding a contract to RVI in the amount of $636,000 and $100,000 for the West 38th Avenue Refresh Project. At issue, the 30th Avenue corridor between Wadsworth and Sheridan Boulevards has long been recognized as a priority redevelopment area in Wheat Ridge. In 2011, the 30th Avenue corridor plan confirmed the area east of Wadsworth as redevelopment priority and set forth a vision to transform the corridor into the community's main street. In November 2023, Wheat Ridge voters approved the 2J sales tax extension, which focuses on funding critical public infrastructure projects, including a refresh of 30th Avenue to achieve connectivity, safety, and placemaking goals. RVI Planning and Landscape Architecture was selected after a thorough request for proposal process as a contractor for this project.
Thank you. This is a motion by the council. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation?
We do. Thank you, Mayor. Lauren is pulling up the presentation, and we actually have RVI Planning and Landscape here this evening. I'll let them introduce themselves, but they have a quick presentation of who they are, what the scope of work is in this proposal. But as you all know, this project has been a long time coming, and as Councilmember read in the issue statement, 38th Avenue between Wads and Sheridan has been envisioned as the city's main street, and we've done many things since 2005 when it first came up in the neighborhood revitalization strategy as creating a place in Wheat Ridge for people to go. And we are excited we are here today. We've done a lot over those many years of integrating or implementing some of the recommendations, but this is kind of the final step of creating this Main Street that's been envisioned, again, since 2005, and more importantly, in the 2011 corridor plan. So with that, I'm going to invite RVI up and let them introduce themselves and talk about who they are and what they have planned.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. We are from RVI. I'm Craig Russell. I'm a principal there, and I'll be the principal in charge in this project.
And then I'm Melanie Carpenter, a project manager, and will also kind of lead landscape architectural components as well.
So RVI is a planning, landscape architecture, and urban design firm. We are based in Denver and Fort Collins. We're sort of a medium-sized firm with roughly 150 people, 12 offices. We'll exclusively lead this project, however, from our Denver and Fort Collins office. We've got a fairly strong history, I think, in Wheat Ridge as well, with projects spanning from the Youngfield gateways to some of the Kipling corridor aesthetic improvements, bus station enhancements, those types of projects. They've been largely planning. And this project, however, is very geared towards ending with a built result, right? So our goal here with this project is to develop a little bit stronger, more consolidated vision that ends with a 30% set as far as we're contracted for currently. But that 30% sets the stage for everything that gets built and sets the stage for constructing the project further down the road. So we really need to make sure that we've got an accurate budget and a vision that's supported by and embraced by the community. So part of our task is a little bit more focused outreach, primarily focusing on the businesses along the corridor. And I think you'll see some of our other work, which we'll show you in a second here, that kind of demonstrates the things that we've done in the past that have, I think, really sort of approached projects from this angle.
Yeah, so just to take you through a little bit of our experience, we're a firm that is very familiar with streetscape-like projects, particularly within downtowns, and really creating kind of impactful and meaningful kind of impacts for communities. So up on the screen right now is 4th Street in Loveland, Colorado, multiple blocks through downtown Loveland. This project is definitely kind of on that transformative type of scale, really kind of focusing on that public realm and increasing amenity through that core downtown space. This project is actually under construction right now and kind of wrapping up. Similar work that we've done across the Front Range, a lot of work in Fort Collins, given our local office there, Linden Street in downtown Fort Collins, another kind of really impactful renovation to a street in downtown and kind of amplifying that amenity piece and making it just extremely welcoming and pedestrian oriented as well.
This project is also geared for events. So it's a convertible street that can be used for multiple types of events. One interesting sort of anecdote about this project is after this one was constructed, as well as some of our alley improvements that we've done downtown, the Downtown Development Authority has tracked the vacancy rates, and they're largely attributing the general stability in vacancy rates, in other words, no increase, to a lot of this type of investment. So I think you'll definitely see similar results as you build out 38th Street and really transform it into something meaningful. I think economic vitality and just the results from that friendly, approachable, welcoming corridor that you get can be seen and is tangible in terms of sales tax revenue, is tangible in terms of vacancy rates as well. So it is really noticeable and results-oriented kind of investment that can be made.
Just to highlight a couple of other kind of unique streets that have been reframed to allow for a lot more service to the community. This is in Boulder, kind of enhanced to be an event street, but also just really focusing on that local community and that increase in kind of usability on the day-to-day as well. So it's not just about creating something special for that one-off event, but someplace that the community can gather and use on a daily basis. So really building in that flexibility so that your street is providing a greater service across multiple needs than just transit. And then just a few others to highlight. Our office has been really involved in the downtown Fort Collins Alley Enhancement Initiative. We've done now 9 completed, constructed alley enhancement projects across downtown Fort Collins. And I think that these are always really unique and kind of bring some of those urban challenges of trying to mitigate services and utilities. And I think we'll see a lot of that on the 38th Avenue project as well, of just that creativity piece of how you can really create places for people to gather that are welcoming, that people want to be in, even while kind of balancing all of the needs that they need to accomplish as well. One of our active projects right now is in downtown Louisville, and I think what really a great commonality with this project is that kind of catalyst space that really gets pulled into the street, and how those two spaces really support each other. Obviously, kind of west end of the 38th Avenue refresh project site, you all have a really impactful green space now. And so really understanding the nuances of how those two spaces talk to each other and can really support each other, I think is something that we're very familiar with. And then lastly, we just wanted to highlight the West Elizabeth corridor. This is in Fort Collins, but I think has a very similar scale in terms of length of, we've got about a mile stretch that we're working on with this project. So similar in scope and size as West 38th, and just that familiarity to identify unique character zones, understand that when you're dealing with a road segment that long, that there really are kind of unique little pockets amongst that, and really responding to those thoughtfully is something that we're very in touch with.
This project also has a strong multimodal component where we've integrated transit and bike lanes and walkability. That's pretty important, right? So we spent about a better part of a day out on this site, and I think this is a lot of what we've captured. We appreciate the no muffler ordinance, by the way, too, after spending some time out here. There is a really strong, this section in here, sorry, you probably can't see my pointer, but on the east end towards Sheridan, right, there's a really strong kind of sense of place, established character, established street trees, very generally comfortable walking path, sidewalks, amenities are fairly well developed. We're sort of envisioning that doesn't necessarily need a lot of enhancement. That's something that we might build upon, that we might enhance a little bit. enhancing lighting, some of the accessibility points, a little bit more enhancement in terms of character, maybe wayfinding. But really, that is sort of the district that establishes and sets the stage as you travel from Sheridan to Wadsworth, right? So it's very much kind of setting the stage for the rest of the corridor itself. And when you look at the corridor as a whole and all the work that's been done previously, we're standing on some pretty tall shoulders in terms of what the work that has been done with the comp plan, with various other planning efforts, and really kind of sets the stage for a lot of the transportation network that we can work from, sets the stage for this idea of staying places, which are our focus at the west end. But so what a staying place is, then if you move over to that west end towards Wadsworth, is you really want to create an environment that's conducive towards restaurants, towards potentially new hotel developments, a little bit more mixed use downtown type of developments. And you had mentioned that this 38th Avenue is intended to become, in many ways, the heart of Wheat Ridge, the downtown center, and the downtown core. And what we see there on that west end is really that need for that strong streetscape, building on what was done with the park, which we believe was done, seems like it's a huge success, right, overall. And building on a lot of the success of some of the businesses that are there, really trying to kind of help the remaining businesses continue to grow and thrive, make sure that we've created a comfortable walking space for pedestrians, make sure that we've developed lighting plans that are not only just about a minimum level of safety, but really make people feel comfortable and are conducive to them spending time in the evening activation, those types of things. Patio opportunities, additional street trees would be fantastic. And then in that middle section where we're kind of between Pierce and Harlan, if you're familiar with those two streets along that corridor, that's sort of in many ways kind of the crux of what needs to happen. There's a lot of sort of disconnected sidewalks. There is a general lack of street trees, and as a pedestrian, there's not a huge level of comfort as you're trying to walk through there. So I think our thought is really, let's create a strong edge through there. Let's really kind of focus on developing that comfortable walking space that's detached, that has street lights, street trees, and really starts to continue in many ways the character that was established from Sheridan to Harlan, if you think about it that way. So in terms of cost and budget and intensity in terms of work, we're seeing that, it's a little bit of a continuum towards the west, but in terms of increasing intensity and dedication. But that section in the middle is really key to really kind of helping that downtown potentially continue to thrive and potentially grow out to the east a little bit. Basically, that covers it, but we're absolutely honored to have been selected for this. I think really excited about the opportunities that the corridor represents, and we're excited to work with your group as well, potentially as we move along. Oh yeah, we do.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I can touch on that briefly. So just really high level kind of project timeline overview. We'll be working at this for the better part of a year. We'll start with a very robust analysis phase, really focusing on understanding the corridor, understanding what's there today, so that it gives us a really strong foundation for visioning, and kind of a launch point to see where those gaps exist and what needs to be done to get the most out of our project budget. We'll also kind of move from initial visioning into kind of this draft conceptual phase. And that's really testing options, testing ideas. Are kind of, you'll see engagement really picks up during this phase, and kind of engaging with those stakeholder groups to make sure that we're getting all of the voices that need to be heard as we weigh what feels the best. We'll take all of that feedback to develop a final concept design. And so we'll go away for a little bit to kind of filter through all of that feedback and kind of turn it into this preferred concept design. And we'll have another round of engagement to kind of check that. So I think it's always to kind of do a cyclical approach with engagement, always go back to the community, make sure that we interpreted their feedback correctly, and your feedback correctly, and you're seeing the adjustments that you'd like. And then to kind of polish off the end of our this initial phase of the project, Craig mentioned the kind of the documentation side, the 30% design, but also task 5 is this evaluation piece. And so we'll take a little bit closer look at phasing, funding, those types of more kind of technical, logistical components to help lay the kind of outlook for how to get this done. So.
That's it.
Mayor, that's our staff presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Questions?
Looks like we have no questions from the public, so we'll go to questions from council. Councilor Hulteen. Okay, Councilor Wood.
Nice presentation, and it sounds great. You talked about outreach, and I can tell that that's definitely a focus of your work. But I thought I would ask if you might just expound on that a little bit about if you thought further toward what stakeholder groups, for instance, maybe a little early in the planning, but I thought I would ask.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that a little bit. But so within RVI, what makes it really great is we do have really strong kind of expertise on the public engagement side of things. So we'll have Will, our director of planning, be a really important leader in helping kind of set up our events. We'll start in that initial kind of kickoff phase. We'll kind of pull from all the different stakeholders that we think need to be spoken to. And we usually like to set up a couple of different focus groups, if you will, of you've kind of got city staff and departments as a really important group, general public as kind of a different group. And if there are any other kind of specific groups that business owners, for example, those types of things that are project specific, we'll kind of put them into little, I guess just smaller focus groups to get a little bit better feedback. So we'll do that at the beginning of the project so that those groups are constantly being communicated with throughout, and we'll have different touch points for each of them.
Yeah, I think the part of our initial work, we'll need to develop a project management plan with staff. And so we'll work pretty closely with staff to make sure that we're capturing everybody needs to be captured. Probably really geared towards, as we said, focus groups with downtown businesses. And a lot of times what we find in these types of corridors, we sort of need to do at least maybe a block by block workshop along the corridor, because that block has its own sort of unique concerns. And what's happening next to Wadsworth is going to be kind of meaningless for somebody next to Cherry. So it's just, it doesn't always correlate. Where we've got those common interests is important, but I would also say that a focus group from potentially some of the transportation board members, general public, and some of the other representatives of the community that have a strong interest in the project might be very wise, I would think.
Yeah, and it wasn't staff's intention, unless we hear differently from council, to do a full citywide engagement program. We've been engaging the community on this for 20-some years. I think we hear many times from the public, at least I do, just do it. So we definitely want to engage with the stakeholders that are mostly relevant. So that's our plan, unless we hear different from you guys.
Councilor Holteen.
Thank you. It is a dream to have 38th Avenue done before I'm off this planet. Thank you for coming here tonight to present. I've got a couple of just sort of scoping questions. A lot of your presentation showed sort of more of these improvements to auxiliary streets that like really serve higher traffic main streets. Does this particular project include looking at scoping on High Street and Teller as potential hybrid streets that could extend the Main Street experience into streets that could be closed off for fairs and festivals, or are we really just focusing on the 38th Avenue right away?
I think in the initial phases, we had planned on sort of expounding on that vision, right? Taking the work that's been done. So in the initial visioning component and concept, whether or not that is fully designed and budgeted as part of the project expense and can be paid for as part of the budget, we're not totally sure. But definitely the side streets and adjacent streets will need to take it.
Okay.
They're important.
Okay.
As well as, I might add, some of the parallel networks potentially that can be used more effectively for bicyclists that are a little bit more road stressed in terms of, use of.
Okay, that actually makes me want to ask a follow-up question. Okay. So when you say that, do you mean looking at things like 41st and 35th as alternative routes for bicyclists, or as part of like a network connection that connects the existing on-street facilities that are not the best to the rest of the network we're trying to build out in the city?
More of a network. I think that's
okay.
You want to kind of follow the direction of the planning work that's been done.
Okay.
Use that as a guide.
Okay.
And a lot of that expands on that idea of those parallel networks. But really, this interconnected network is important.
Okay. And then a second scoping question is really asking, having a long history in the sauce with planning on 38th Avenue, the constraints of our right-of-way. When we're talking about the corridor, what are we talking about? What's on the table? What's off the table? Are we approaching this like we did with 44th, where we're really clear that we're not touching curbs? Like what's on the table, what's off the table in terms of defining public right-of-way space for vehicular movement and pedestrian movement and different auxiliary improvements?
Yeah, that was staff's intent also, was to curb. That's there, not moving the curb. As you know, moving street width requires a supermajority vote, and then if there's a protest, it requires going to the vote of the people.
Mm-hmm.
We thought that was one reason why we're sitting here 20 years later and nothing's happened. So we've asked them to scope within the current street curb network.
All right. Thank you. That's helpful.
There could be, there could be, I think the charter even allows us, if it's a short distance, a small area or something, I think we have some flexibility to go out. So I think we'll be open to that if it makes sense, like maybe around High and 38, that something gets pushed in or something. I think we saw that flexibility.
Yeah, I think there was an interpretation like 4 years ago that allowed for some flexibility if it was to like add bike lanes. I think that was interpreted for 32nd Avenue. Okay, one more question and then just a request. Let's see, right away. Oh, how closely will this look at the connection to Wadsworth? We've got beautiful investments now on Wadsworth, and there's just like a significant disconnect between for all vehicular travel really from what is currently operating as our main street to Wadsworth. So will it actually make that connection? Because previous planning kind of ended at Upham, and we're missing a really important opportunity to connect significant capital investments that our community has just put a lot of effort into.
Yeah, so we had planned on trying to take a holistic look at the entire corridor, including the intersection. You know, I know that it transitions out of city limits a little bit, right? But at Wadsworth, we would certainly look at that entire intersection and follow along the Wadsworth driveway for that, you know, couple hundred feet. So I think taking a holistic look at everything as a connected network and not constraining ourselves initially to just the immediate right of way along 38 will be important. But I would say the objective is really, I think, focused on the improvements within the right of way. That's not to say that may not encompass some of those intersections, right? Is that fair?
Okay. And then I asked this in 2014, and I'm going to emphasize cleaning up the language around, is this a main street or is this a downtown? Those, I think, bring forward two very different images. And I think we've been leading a lot with calling this our main street, but even tonight, it's been kind of toggled between calling it Main Street and calling it downtown. And I just think it's really helpful for us in communicating what this is. Like downtown, I think just brings a different image. And so I would prefer Main Street, but either way, I think recognizing that those are not interchangeable terms to most people in our community and like bring forward different visions. So I would just ask as this project proceeds that we pick one and use some discipline around it, because I think it's really important. One of the first things I said to Patrick in 2014 is, are we calling it a main street? And if we're calling it a main street, we got to like consistently do that. So I'm just going to make that request in 2026. And then I think it's going to be helpful for us to communicate to our community members, many of whom were not here at the first or the second rounds of this corridor planning, just to help connect them with that history, that it's not that we're not engaging our community, but we're building off of both the engagement we've heard from them on the green and through other community engagement, so that they don't necessarily feel bypassed. I think we're really good at that. We have robust communication. And I think in general, people will be happy to see something go forward and not have to add the timeline that a real robust engagement would require here. I think it's okay, but I think we need to be mindful of at least letting people know that there's a history, and that history actually, both planning visions came up with the same vision. So we have some clarity on like some frameworks for this moving forward. So anyway, thank you for presenting tonight, and excited to see what this looks like at the end of the year.
Thank you. Councilor Alm.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for the presentation. I'm really excited about seeing that 38 have some vision, some connectivity. It is very disjointed. And a couple questions I had were, one, I know CDOT is doing a study along Sheridan. Are you going to look at anything, at least in the analysis, as far as that intersection crossing Sheridan from Denver, to Wheat Ridge?
Absolutely. Okay. I think we had scoped this with a fairly intense analysis phase. So Mead and Hunt, who is also working on the west leg of the 38th corridor, there are traffic engineers, civil engineers, and I think much of what they'll be doing is looking into that, as well as things like parking studies. Some of those level of service analysis will be really key to understanding how the corridor works. And I know we've got some of that, but we'll need to build on. We'll need to build on that. But absolutely, I think the intersections at Sheridan, intersection at Wadsworth, they're pretty critical to the functioning of the overall corridors.
And then are you going to do any analysis on a couple things, shared parking, and like EV charging stations, electric bike parking?
Yes, yes to all of the above.
Okay.
We've scoped sort of a curbside management is what the terminology that is used these days, but it's really comprehensive in terms of a parking study that's intended to capture what are the existing conditions and utilization rates. So utilization rates are a big factor in terms of how you can look at one way to look at parking. That's going to be important in terms of EV stations. Yeah, that absolutely can affect those types of things, as well as bike parking in general, but specifically for electric bikes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Counselor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for this presentation. This may be more of a question for staff, but I wanted to piggyback on a question that Councilor Hulteen asked. Where do you see this project coinciding with improvements that we're speaking specifically about bicycle improvements that were going to happen on 35th? Because I know we just talked about 41st and 35th kind of being those parallel networks. And I know that there was some discussion around some improvements on 35th. And so I was just thinking about those project timelines and when they may occur and or if they would have anything to do with each other.
Yeah, Kent, you have an update on 35th. I think we're working on a IGA with CDOT for that project, and we have grant funding, but you want to address that a little bit?
Yeah, we're working with CDOT right now to get the request for proposals out for the 35th multimodal. So that'll be the next thing that goes out, but we do need their concurrence on that proposal before it does go out.
So that will be, the first phase will be design right after that, and then construction after that. So probably a design might be happening similar timeframe.
That's great. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Councilor Okada.
Mayor Pro Tem's comment about the distinction between Main Street and downtown is ringing in my head a little bit, mostly because as a layperson myself, I'm not seeing much of a distinction. I'm sure there is, and I want to see what the experts have to say to help educate me about a difference between those two.
Yes, I would agree with Mayor Pro Tem. I would agree with your assessment that generally Main Street connotates that a little bit smaller scale and more friendly set of storefronts. Downtown can be, I think a completely different scale to some people can mean that it's not just really about people, places, and gathering and storefronts and that kind of thing. It's a little different, could be a little bit different in terms of the land use and the types of buildings and the types of spaces. So I appreciate that comment as well. I think that's what we will use moving forward.
Thank you. That helps.
Thank you. Councilor Larson.
And thank you, Mayor. The first question is for staff on the fee estimates survey page. That it looks like page 133 on sub-consultants. Can you explain why we are spending $90,000 on a right-of-way survey?
Might be better question
Yeah,
for a consultant.
So part of the objective of this project is to set the stage for initial construction documents. And really, it's really critical that we know where utilities are, we know exactly how high a curb is, we know what the grades are, and that we know where curbs are located. You know, every sort of improvement along the corridor, I think, has to be pretty precise for us to generate an accurate estimate. But not only that, create plans that are constructible and don't result in you know, setting us up early for change orders during construction. And in our experience, the downtown or intense urban projects or anything of this nature that has some history to it oftentimes have utilities or have, you know, a lot of underground networks, just conditions that are challenging for us, right? If we don't understand that from the beginning, we're not going to be able to set the project up for success. The number does, I know, at the outset seem high. We did do some competitive pricing for that number, just specifically because it can get really high. And that was from our friends at ServWest. We had also gotten a few other kind of surveying companies to look at it. They were actually on the lower end. So it's just a lot of surveyor time, a lot of time out collecting data. And they also had some underground utility plans that are involved in there, which involves a lot of research into kind of what's there with different organizations and agencies. So it's quite a bit of work. I know it does seem like that.
Yeah, believe me, I understand the extent of something like that. Obviously, there's documents and surveys and blueprints and whatnot that exist.
Yeah.
But over time, things can change.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I appreciate that explanation. Every one of the sort of possibilities includes the patio lights. Is that a foregone conclusion? We're going to have patio lights?
No, not necessarily. I think it's been generally well received, and I think you're seeing those because when we go out to stakeholders and ask them what they want, that's everybody's first thing. Oh, you got to have Tivoli lights, and you got to have this festive lighting, but absolutely not.
Thank you. And the understanding that I have is that right now, if I was to ask you, well, how much is it going to cost the city of Wheat Ridge? We're not there yet. At the 30% point on the timeline is when we should have an idea of approximately how much this is we're looking at.
That is one of the most significant jobs we have here. And yeah, we try to take it really seriously because it's a really big deal when you're allocating budgets. We understand.
And Mr. Larson, we do have approximately 10 million set aside in our 2J funds for this project. That can fluctuate based on numerous things, but that's kind of what we're shooting for.
Absolutely. And I appreciate in the staff memo that very high up in the discussion, the 2J funding is prominent. I mean, that's where the voters agreed to this project, and I think that's very appropriate. In your discussion when you have discussions with the businesses along there, it seems to me that the parking and the concerns of the businesses along there will be probably the first thing they bring up. If you drive along 38th, you can see where a strip mall will have no curbs and it's completely open parking and no sidewalk. And half a block down, you'll have more traditional where you've got curbs and restricted parking and that sort of thing. You're looking at a real stew here of different sorts of parking options. How do you open that conversation with the business owner?
Well, we need to first do it with accurate data. In other words, how does parking work and what's sort of the general utilization And what are then some options? We don't want to go in with a preconceived notion of how to solve the problem, but we need to do, that's why it's critical that we go through that analysis phase to really kind of study that and figure out where our options are, right? It's possible that some of those parking areas could be shared. There could be shared agreements between different property owners. I think you can go down that corridor right now and you can see one parking lot that's half empty and another parking lot that's half empty next to it. Where can we get some efficiencies, those types of things? How can we really maybe encourage that so that things like sidewalks and other improvements can be brought into the equation potentially? I'm just throwing that out there as a possible option.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It gets pretty thorny when you, especially if you're considering installing a curb and a sidewalk where there is not a curb and sidewalk now.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, people understand why you need sidewalks, especially on a main street. I look forward to this process going along and hearing what our business owners are concerned about. So I'm sure they're just as anxious as anybody to see how this evolves.
Yes, they typically are the most interested, and because it has such a direct effect.
And you're talking about one of the primary revenue generators for the city.
It is, yeah. So we definitely understand that economic concern.
Thank you. Seeing no more questions, Councilor Ohm, can we please have a motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to award a contract to RVI in the amount of $636,000 and $100 for the West 38th Avenue refresh project.
Second.
And we have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Seven ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 5. Councilor Okada, will you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 05-2026, a resolution of support for an application to the Jefferson County Parks and Open Space Land Conservation Partnership Program for funding to support the acquisition of a remnant RTD parcel at the Wheat Ridge Ward commuter rail station. At issue, the Parks and Recreation and Community Development Department seek to apply for funding from Jefferson County Parks and Open Space Land Conservation Partnership Program to purchase approximately 1.15 acre parcel at Taft Court and West 51st Avenue from the Regional Transportation District for a future neighborhood park. The program will fund up to 25% of the cost of land acquisition, provided the land becomes a public park or open space area. A resolution of support is required from the City Council to apply for this funding program.
Thank you. This is a resolution by the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation?
We do, very brief, but thank you, Mayor. Although this is just a resolution of support for an application, we thought this would be a good time to give you a quick update on this potential property purchase and how this impacts this neighborhood and something that we've heard through our public engagement process. And I'll turn it over to Karen first to talk about the grant.
Thanks. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as mentioned, the intent of this resolution in this item today is to submit an application to Jefferson County Parks and Open Space through their land conservation program in order to obtain acquisition funding. And as you all know, there's been significant residential growth in the northwest portion of Wheat Ridge, and we don't have any park amenities there currently. So through the Let's Talk engagement program and also through our Parks and Recreation Pathway update, we heard that this is a desire of that segment of the community. So we wanted to look at some funding sources, and Community Development Director Mikulak has worked closely with RTD and has obtained an appraisal so that we are able to move forward with this application. So I don't know if y'all have any questions, but collectively, we should be able to answer those.
Maybe Lauren could also give a quick update on the process of acquiring this.
Sure, just briefly, it might feel a little bit like the cart before the horse here, but they're dueling timelines. So, I'm working with Counselor Wood and her colleagues actually at RTD to navigate the RTD process and the federal process and the process with their operator. That will take some time. We didn't want to wait too long to miss out on some funding opportunities, which is why we're here tonight. We have been working with RTD. We've toured the site with RTD. They just have a tricky arrangement with Denver Transit partners and operators who manages this, would need to release the area from their lease. We would then come up with a purchase price, plat the property off if needed, and then get through modifications of our IGA and other purchase and sale agreements. So there's a lot of steps to come. We put that in memo too. You'll be hearing a lot of those. But in order to not miss out on some funding opportunities, we realize that it's probably best to come now to try to take advantage of this grant because it has been something that the community's desired for so long.
And I would just add as well that if acquired, we would work with the community through an engagement process to determine what park amenities would go on that site.
And we did have, we've set aside $1 million, I think, in proposed 2027 budget in Karen's open space budget to help with either acquisition or development. So, but again, we're hoping to leverage other grant funds as well to help with that.
Thank you. We have nobody signed up from the public to ask any questions, so we'll go to questions from council. Councilor Okada.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, really excited. This is my neighborhood, and I do know from my neighbors the interest that they have in a park. One thing that's just worth mentioning is that a lot of us in the townhomes that are to the west of here, on the image on the screen, have a lot of young children, and I think our developers over there were surprised a little bit by that. We have a Metro District park that's in the middle of the townhomes over there that has some exercise equipment, and one of the questions that gets asked of the HOA quite frequently is how can we replace that with a playground? And it's a very difficult question because it's not very possible. But knowing about this possibility coming down the pipeline, I'm sure that there's a lot of families that I have as neighbors that would be very excited about that. I do have a couple of questions about this, mostly about one's very procedural, and I doubt this is an issue, but when we looked up the parcels that are in question, there's a couple strange things about it. The first thing is that, and in the document it mentions that there's two parcels that are a part of it, but the resolution only refers to one. Would there be an issue, a potential issue of that being unclear in our application? I doubt it, because it seems like it would come down to a single letter, but there's two parcels that are involved in this, it seems.
That's a good question. We'll double check that before we submit it to Jeffco Open Space. I think they're accustomed to seeing applications at this early stage. There are two parcels that make up the RTD property. They do not align with the improvements that are there today. So we can make sure that that's clear when we apply to Jeffco.
Okay, and that addresses a little bit of the second question that I have. Those two parcels are very strangely shaped.
Yes.
I imagine that might have been because RTD may have had a different plan for how they were going to be approaching the parking over there. But mostly for the process of this application, I imagine that the shape of those parcels also is not particularly a problem with the way that we're applying here.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Councilor Wood.
Yeah, I think I should say that I am aware of this, and I do work for RTD. So I think I should just in full disclosure honor that and say that. I am not in a position at RTD to influence this in any way or be a decision maker in this process in any way, and see no real reason to recuse myself from this. But in full disclosure, I wanted to get that out there, and if the feeling is that I should recuse myself, I certainly will.
Thank you for mentioning that. Not necessary. It's clear there's not a financial interest involved. It's not a quasi-judicial matter at this point. It's a program of the city, and there's no conflict in the fact that you know more about part of this world as a result of your other job, but that doesn't trigger a financial interest that would implicate the recusal requirements in the charter. So thanks for the disclosure. I think it's important people hear that so that questions don't come up later but to do it early is good. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, Councilor Okada, may we have a motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve Resolution 05-2026, a resolution of support for an application to the Jefferson County Parks and Open Space Land Conservation Partnership Program for funding to support the acquisition of a remnant RTD parcel at the Wheat Ridge Ward Commuter Rail Station.
Second.
I have a second by Councilor Snell. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 6. Councilor Snell, will you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this is resolution number 06-2026, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2025 general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $381,881 for contractual building division services. At issue, Charles Abbott Associates provides contractual building division services for the city. Payment to CAA occurs monthly and is based on permit-related revenues. The 2025 budget approved $868,000 for building division services. However, actual permit activity exceeded estimates, resulting in higher contract expenses. This resolution amends the 2025 budget to reconcile revenues and expenses and to allow payment of year-end invoices.
Thank you. This is a resolution by the council. Mr. Goff, do we have any staff presentation?
I think briefly, yeah, this would typically be on consent agenda, but since we do have 4 new council members, and this is kind of just a budget cleanup, we have a somewhat unique process here in Wheat Ridge for our building department services. So I wanted Lauren to kind of explain that a little bit.
Thank you. Yes, so Charles Abbott, as you saw in the memo and some of the history, has been a partner, a contractor for the city for several years now. They actually started working for our building division before the hailstorm. That's like the seminal moment for me as it relates to our building division team. In 2017, there were our on-call building contract services. We've had that for decades now, where we didn't usually hire an electrical inspector or an elevator inspector, so we routinely had an on-call service. When the hailstorm happened and every roof in Wheat Ridge, it seemed, got replaced, they were very much on call. They actually sent a lot of their staff from across the country to live in Colorado in hotels for the better part of a year. At the same time, we were having difficulty staffing some of our inspector positions and our chief building official position. So for a period of time, my predecessor was the CBO, and we looked internally and externally and tried to figure out what was the best way to deliver consistent services to our community. And that is what caused us to evaluate the potential of a full service operation. We did a competitive bid at that time. Charles Abbott, who was our on-call provider, was one of a few people who applied to be the full service provider. We selected them. We had a shorter initial contract, and then last year, right about this time, we did a new competitive process, and they again earned that contract. So now we are 1 year into a 9-year contract that's renewed every year. This exercise of reconciling our year-end revenues and expenses doesn't happen every year. Sometimes our crystal ball is sort of spot on and we don't need to do this. Some years we have big projects like last year that bumped up our revenues and therefore bump up the percentage that they take to cover our inspection services. So that's where we are today. I put a little table in the memo that tries to summarize those permit fees. They don't get any portion of our use tax. They get permit fees and a small portion of contractor licenses. So revenues were a little bit higher than expected, and that is essentially why we're here tonight, to sort of reconcile everything, get them paid out, and move on to our second year of our contract. Thanks.
Thank you. We have nobody signed up to ask questions from the public, so we'll go to questions from council. Councilor Larson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just as a sort of what if permit revenue declines, would their contract payment decline as well?
Yes, so they invoice us monthly, and I think I put it in here. For the first 100,000 of each month, they receive 80% of fees collected, and then when it's a month with higher than 100,000, they get a smaller percentage. It's only 60%. So each month, their invoice and the money they make is based exclusively on the money that we have come in the door.
Any questions? Seeing none, Counselor Snell, we have a motion on this.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the resolution 06-2026, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2025 general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $381,881 for contractual building division services. Numbers are hard.
Yes, they are. Second.
We have a second by Counselor Quinn. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We will go to our next agenda item, city managers matters.
Nothing else this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. City attorneys matters.
One quick item, council, you will have received from me, you did within the last week, a short memo on the city's administrative pause of the 2024 telecommunications tax that the city has. And I just wanted to make certain that if you had any questions, you're welcome to ask me those now. You can ask me them later or by email in any way you like. I described in the memo that there was yet another Colorado Supreme Court decision we have to respond to that invalidated a Lakewood tax. It's very similar to the city's. Doesn't mean the city can't impose a telecom occupation tax, but just not the most recent one. That council, those of you that were here not long ago will remember we went through quite a bit of work redesigning that and trying to make it more equitable, frankly. No good deed, I guess. But that's the version the Supreme Court, or similar to Lakewood's, that the Supreme Court said, you know, that's a new tax under Tabor. We don't respectfully think it is because it really doesn't materially increase revenue. But Supreme Court saw it differently, and we're looking at how to restructure that tax. But meanwhile, the solution was to merely revert to the pre-2024 version, which was different and thusly not within the scope of that Supreme Court decision. So we're able to collect the tax, just not in, frankly, what we believed was the improved way to collect it. We've messaged the various telecom providers that we're pausing that administratively and reverting to the prior tax. As you see from my memo, we're considering, and we'll need to look at it further before we bring it back to you. But this is one thing we might just bite the bullet and say, okay, if the Supreme Court says it's a new tax on Tabor, we'll run a ballot question, run a Tabor question in November. We haven't made that decision yet, and I'm not prepared to opine on it, but I wanted to give you a little background for the memo that you got kind of out of the blue from me. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll go to elected officials matters. We'll start with Councilor Okada.
Nothing for me today.
Thank you. Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. And the past 2 weeks, no, it's been quiet.
Thank you. Councilor Wood.
One item, unfortunately, Councilor Martell is not here tonight, but I just wanted to mention that she gave me a great tour of the makerspace last week, or potentially that was the week before. Sometimes they all go together. And I am continually amazed at the things I haven't known about, and so proud of Wheat Ridge for this amenity because it's wonderful. I've told several people about it, and in fact, a couple that I know have already gone and checked it out because they want to be a part of that. So it's really an amazing thing. And again, thanks to Councilor Martell for the tour.
Thank you. Councilor Quinn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple of things for District 3 folks. Councilor Wood and I we've secured getting a space at the rec center Saturday the 31st from 9 to a little after 10 for a little District 3 update. I think Mr. Mayor, you'll be there, and anyone else, obviously. Alex, I'm going to call him Axel because I'm just going to get it over with.
Axel Rose.
Yeah, Axel Rose. Alex Rose. He's going to be there to talk about the red light cameras and the speed cameras, and if there's any questions for that. That'll be our first one, so I'm sure it'll be smooth as glass. I went to coffee with the mayor at this past Saturday, or no, 2 Saturdays ago, wasn't it? Those are fun. They're pretty well attended, and I appreciate you going to the different businesses every week. We just need to invest in some type of microphone and giant speaker so I can hear you. I just keep going to the rec center to try to get rid of the year's beer gut. And a friend of mine said it's a rec center, not a miracle center. So I'm still trying. So you do a great job at the rec center. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Counselor Snell.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of things this evening. First of all, I wanted to just recognize tonight and tomorrow are part of, throughout Jefferson County, we're doing the point in time count. That's going on with our homeless navigators where we have volunteers. And I just want to acknowledge those volunteers going out and really having an accurate count for us with our homeless unhoused community members. It's really important to get those numbers because that is directly related to the funding that we receive to help folks out. So thank you to those volunteers. I'll see you at 6 a.m. I also wanted to just acknowledge Axel Rose also for attending our coffee. Councilor Martell and I, our office hours last week, Alex came over and had a great chat. And so Councilor Martell and I are continuing those. So we'll have those starting up again in February. And then lastly, I'd just like to thank the neighbors who joined us tonight, sharing concerns for the city of Minneapolis and for what's going on in our country, as well as residents who have reached out to me over the last week. I've gotten calls and emails, and I appreciate so much you taking the time. By and large, the message that I'm hearing is concern for your neighbor, and that is hugely important. And it shows me that Wheat Ridge is a place where people care about each other, and that's important during a time when a lot of communities are hurting. I'd like to acknowledge the impact this moment is having on our neighbors. Many folks in our community are watching events unfold with concern and feeling a sense of unease. And I hear and share those concerns. I understand that community leaders are responsible for listening to and advocating for residents with the foundational right that all people should feel safe and secure in their communities. So know that your concerns are not taken lightly, and we're taking steps to get some more information out to you. So thank you so much for your time and for reaching out, and please consider that just an open invitation. Continue to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. This week I got to attend the Jeffco EDC Board of Directors. We looked through nothing real exciting. We looked through all the financials. Appreciate thank you for the appointment, Mayor. And I'm looking for a lot of good conversations. There's a lot of talented private partnerships, public officials. It's a really large group. I just kind of want to be transparent. I haven't heard a lot about it before in the past. There's probably about like 30 people from all walks of life. And everybody's at the top of their game. They're all really excited to, move Jeffco forward. And I'm just really, really grateful to be there. We meet every other month. They've changed it used to be every month. It's every other month. But really looking forward to that. And then I do want to share that I have a brother that lives about 40 minutes from Minneapolis, and a niece and a nephew. It's a tough time, and I share my thoughts with those people, and I just keep thinking that, I think about something really important is that we really need to be the light through this darkness. Kind of paraphrasing MLK, and it's really tough. I know a lot of people are really frustrated right now, and we need to keep cool heads and stay united. And so it's those are heavy things, and they're tough, and we're gonna have more conversations about that. And our community is relying on us to step up and have some good conversations about that, and we'll have more on that later. And then on last week, I attended the chili cook-off. I did not cook any chili. I've never won anything making chili, so I stayed out of that. But what a great group that was there. You know, I saw Councilmember Martell was there. Everybody had a great time at the Grange. I just really want to shed a light, you know, how important having that Grange to us is. In my mind, I just keep wanting to make that more ADA accessible. And so I will keep talking about that. And I know that that's something that's going to be tough, but we are just really lucky to have that. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Hulteen.
Thank you. I've got a couple things tonight, and I just want to share before the meeting tonight. One of the staff members sitting in this, or who was sitting in this room earlier, confirmed pronunciation of my last name. And I'm just laughing because my last name is in fact pronounced Hulteen, but I often say Hulton if people need to spell it. So if you ever hear me mispronounce my own last name, I'm doing that as a favor so you can spell it correctly. So I've got a handful of things. First of all, I just want to recognize Holocaust remembrance acknowledgement that we had tonight. I just remember it's one of my earliest memories as a little kid of sort of my awareness of history. A lot of my friends were Jewish growing up, and the impacts, events that happened during the earliest 20th century, like just go down generations and generations. And so it is living history in our community. I also want to, you may be the 6 a.m. shift. I'm the 9 a.m. shift tomorrow. So bundle up. I am looking forward. I've done the point in time survey before. I think it's really valuable experience for anyone serving our community to have firsthand interactions with people who are part of our community that are struggling with housing and homelessness. The Dr. Cog board last week, it was a doozy of a meeting. It was very long. But a couple big things came out of it. There was an adoption of the active transportation plan, which is really exciting. It really focuses on the regional bike ped networks and corridors, really bringing in some pretty strategic tools that local governments can use to look at an adopted plan, and then what are guides and tools that we can use locally for our own application of pedestrian zones and different mobility infrastructure priorities. So they just shared it today, so I will pass that on to our staff to make sure we've got access to it. But I really like how they went about it. Sometimes regional plans can be kind of abstract in a big framework, and they were very intentional to make sure that the toolkits that come with it are adaptable to our local government. And then lastly, I too stand in solidarity with the community members and the leaders in Minneapolis who are just in a period of time that I honestly cannot imagine what that would be like in our backyard, but as an elected official, I need to. We're hearing from community members who, as Councilmember Snell said, are principally reaching out in concern to neighbors they both know and don't know, who are feeling increased fear and anxiety about being able to go live their day-to-day lives, go to schools, go shopping, go to work, get on transit. So the comments we heard tonight were actually a little bit alarming about potential, incursions on people's private property. That was really unsettling. I spent a good part of the weekend with Councilmember Snell trying to figure out what an appropriate response is right now. There are things we can do as local elected officials, and there are things we cannot do. The things we are doing, and there's things we should be thinking about and being prepared to do. And we've just never been here at this point in time. I've never been here as an individual. I think certainly as a seated body, we've not contemplated this. So Councilmember Snell and I are going to be hosting a community safety event on February 11th at the Wheat Ridge Rec Center. Thank you to city staff for helping pull that together pretty quickly. We are still working on the programming of it, but of course Wheat Ridge Police Department will be there to talk about their approach to community safety in this time. But it's really important to understand that there are only so many things we can do as a city government. What's really important are community partners. I spoke with a colleague today who lives in central Minneapolis, and she was just telling me all the things that rapid response networks and things that community partners are doing to help organize around that type of readiness. So we're going to work hard to make sure that there's a good representation from partner organizations. We've reached out to ACLU. So we're going to work on bringing people together in the room who can provide real-time information about both what the city is doing, can do, but it's also a really important opportunity for community members to express what their fears are, thoughts they have on things that would be important for us to take into consideration as we do both like low-grade preparation for something like this that might happen, and then should these type of enforcements come to our community, that we've actually got tactical preparedness. So, so listening is a big part of it, and we're going to work hard to make sure that there's anonymous ways of submitting questions and concerns for people who are concerned about their safety. So details are forthcoming, but if you need to, please put it in your calendar, February 11th at the Rec Center from 5 to 7 p.m. And we'll be working with the city this week to get some communication materials out there. Meanwhile, Councilmember Snell and I are I'm going to join Councilmembers Snell and Martell. We'll probably have to post it as a meeting at the next coffee on February 3rd at Wolf and Wildflower. Yeah, Mountain Milk. Yep, sorry. I know it after hours. So I'll be there in case community members feel a more pressing and timely need to have some dialogue with elected officials about this particular issue. So I just thank my colleagues for being great partners in this. And anyone who has thoughts or suggestions who would be useful and helpful at that particular event, please reach out to either Councilmember Snell or myself so that we can engage them in that event. So with that, that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. A few things. It's been a busy couple of weeks. I had the opportunity to join the Metro Mayor's Caucus as well as the Colorado Municipal League Mayor's Summit over the last couple of weeks to kind of learn a little bit more about this new role that I have, but also kind of help shape some of their policies as they move forward into this legislative agenda, obviously pushing back against bills that would erode home rule, things like that. So great getting to work with all those mayors from really across the state, but across the metro region, and great to get to know them as well. Fantastic group of people. I know why Mayor Starker always enjoyed being around them. We had some sad news. Loretta DeTuro, who's been a community member in Wheat Ridge for a long time. She was the president of the Wheat Ridge Business Association back when I first joined back in, I think it was 2009. But she's also been the vice president of the Wheat Ridge Business District and several other roles throughout the years, but passed away back in November. Fantastic woman, and sorry to hear that, and sorry to all of her friends and family who will miss her deeply. The other day, I had the opportunity to stop in at Wheat Ridge High School to watch a presentation that they have about Gone Boarding, which Wheat Ridge has been known for their STEM program for the last couple of years, and they've been building a car and taking it and racing it, and they've done a phenomenal job with that. One of the things that they're adding on now is more of an entrepreneurial exercise for the kids, and they'll go to classes throughout the day. They'll learn how to create outdoor equipment, so things like skateboards, snowboards, paddle boards, things like that they can learn how to design and build and basically create their own brand, which is really cool. And then they'll get to learn how to sell it, and they'll donate also some of that money back into the program. So it's called Gone Boarding. It's a great program that they're looking to help get funding for their first year that's coming up here in the 26-27 school year. So if you have the means, take a look at that program. They've got it all over Facebook. They've got a website, and again, if you search Gone Boarding under Wheat Ridge High School, you'll get a lot of information on that. We have our next coffee with the mayor, and I want to thank our staff who went through and created a whole calendar for the year, so we know where they're going to be, but the next one will be on February 14th, which is Valentine's Day. So don't come unless you bought your significant other something that day, and you should find it and buy it in Wheat Ridge, but it'll be at Stylus and Crate as well. So just definitely make sure that you come prepared for that, because I'm going to quiz everybody who's there. And then, we heard it tonight, and our counselors have spoken about it, just the frustration that people are feeling all across the country, but in in our community. And it's hard because it's not something that we can deal with necessarily. It's kind of a helpless feeling to watch something over and over again on TV and social media and not be able to understand it. My suggestion is to take that frustration, take that anger, and put it into this community and channel it in a positive way. So I think it's one of the things that we are seeing is that people of Minneapolis and Minnesota are taking care of each other and they're looking out for their neighbors, and that's something that's I think that Wheat Ridge would do absolutely if we were in that situation. So finding a way to help your neighbors, finding a way to look out for them in any possible way, shape, or form is what we should be doing right now, and making sure that Wheat Ridge, our little slice of the world, is the best possible place we can make it. So having said that, we will adjourn our meeting tonight. It is 8:10. We will be back here a week from tonight, February 2nd, for a study session where we will be interviewing the large list of people who applied for the city clerk's position. I believe we had one. So it'll be a great interview. We also have some other topics that night. So we will adjourn at 8:11 and see you back here on February 2nd. Thank you.